Hi, this is Pat Barrett at Women's Radio, and I am once again with Christine Baumgartner, our absolute expert on relationships. And this series has been so delightful, so informative. I'm so happy to be able to continue with this series and bring you more of Christine's wisdom on how to have good relationships. Men, women, close relationships, family relationships. It's all about good communications. And it's taken her quite a long time to live through things herself and to come up with these wonderful solutions, which she is so generous to share with us. So I am so happy to welcome once again Christine Baumgartner to
Hi,
Women's
Pat.
Radio. Hi,
As
Christine.
always, it's such a treat to be on Zoom with you.
It is a treat to do this. It's a treat to share this. And everything we do, I learn something. Every time we do this, I learn something new. It's really been great to be able to do this. And today, to tell all of our audience, we are going to turn to looking at how we should not, or and how we could not try and take things that other people say too personally. It's sometimes the error in judgment. So
Mhm.
I can't wait to hear what Christine has to tell us about that and how she can help us get past some of that, which trips up a lot of people, including me.
So, lots of people say that they're overthinkers. And often, when we're overthinking, part of the overthinking is, what did this have to do with me? Did they think badly of me? Are they mad at me? Did I say something wrong? They did a study once where they had a man sit by himself in a room for an hour, and they had a woman sit by herself in another room for an hour. And they asked the guy what he thought about for the hour. And he said, sex and cars. And sometimes, but sex and cars was a lot. And they asked the woman what she thought about it. And she reviewed a lot of past conversations, some that had been recent, some that had been years ago, chastising herself about how I should have said something differently and why didn't I stand up for myself. And, you know, they really, I guess what they were thinking about. And I got my feelings so hurt. And what I've learned personally, as I've been recovering one of those, and professionally, when I listen to my clients, a lot of the time, more than you would imagine, way more than 50%, it says nothing personal. It's really not personal. One of my favorite quotes is Eleanor Roosevelt, that she said, what other people think about me is none of my business.
I love that quote. I try and remember that myself because really, what can you do about someone else's opinion of you? You can just continue to do the best job that you can being yourself, being the best you.
Yeah. And so one of the things I point out in the therapy world, often we're busy pointing our finger at the other person, but there's three fingers pointing back. And it's not to find fault. My intention when you say, oh, I have three fingers pointing back at me, is what is my part in this? What is my part in getting upset? What is my part in taking it personally? What is my part in them having this reaction? Because as you said, we can take no responsibility for other people. I mean, I am probably one of the most diplomatic people you will ever meet. And I have had a
You
number
are.
of times, thank you. I really am. I work at it. It was my training in my family, how to get by in my family. And it serves me well, certainly in business and in my personal life. And yet, there are times when I am so caught up short about someone's reaction, when I really thought about what I was going to say and how I was going to present it and knowing something about them, what words to use, and they still. So, what I often say is there's times when you're going to upset people, you're going to make them mad, you're going to make them sad and mad and upset. And the thing to think about is if you've done your best to say it in the most courteous, grace filled, positive way that you can, and they react okay. And if you haven't done your due diligence, then it might be to take it personally. So I had so many instances in my 20s and into my middle to late 30s, all the way through my life up till then, when every time somebody got upset about me, I took it so personally. I would get all sullen and quiet or defensive and want to explain 14 different ways, as my grandmother said, till Sunday. And often they'd go, what? It wasn't even me. They were having a bad day. They were reacting to something that had happened right before, or they misunderstood my tone of voice or the words I was using. So it's such a balance to know when it is about you and when it's not.
Yes.
The thing that's so hard to do, and it's the most brave thing you can do, to say, wow, tell me what happened. Tell me why you reacted like that. And then don't say, did I do something wrong? Blah, blah, blah. Just stop, the invisible duct tape, and wait and see what they say. Because it might be you just pissed them off or annoyed the shit out of them, hurt their feelings. At least now you'll know. And if you want to adjust what you did when you hear that, it's right then, and it doesn't become this horrible snowball that goes for a long time. And when I got brave, because it felt really scary, I still was scared and I did it anyway. Often people would say, did I sound gruff? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it gruff. Or I had one person tell me, everybody tells me I'm really gruff and short. And I apologize because I hear
Oh,
I
wow.
really did do that to you. It was kind of shocking. So find out if it's personal or not. If it is, then you get to decide, am I going to do something different about it? Am I going to change my tone of voice? Am I going to change the way I approach them? Or nope, this is me, like it or lump it. Right. Because that's the other thing. I don't want you turning yourself into a pretzel and change the core part of you. And the way I work personally and professionally is there's often more than one way to say something so that you're not doing what we call poke the bear. So like if there's a bear hibernating, you don't want to mess with it because they need to sleep. They'll wake up in a much better mood if they got to sleep. So
They'll wake up in a better mood to eat you up, right?
that's true. So, and men do it too. Men want to please women as such a high value to them, generally, often, most of the time personally, and a lot in professionally. And so when we react in a negative way, whether it's them or not, and whether it's founded to be upset with them or not, they take it very personally. And they're not good at all about asking what's
No.
going on.
No.
Partly because they already made us mad or upset. And why do they want to? They really do feel like they're poking the bear if they ask more.
Yes, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
my father-in-law had a great expression, and I've heard a lot of other people use it, which is never complain, never explain. And I'm beginning to think more and more as I get older, that is a good philosophy. I know that I tend to complain, which really doesn't help anything, right? Um, so, and explaining, that is definitely not necessary. You should not have to explain. If somebody needs to know something, they ought to be able to ask you.
it's a really good point. I like what he said. So, especially for women, men too, but women more, complaining helps us lower our blood pressure, helps us get our feelings out.
Well, in that case.
So that we can think more clearly. So if there was 3 women friends, the 3 of us had a mentoring group for years. And our agreement was when we first get on our call, because we lived in 3 different places, everybody would have their 10 minutes of wine, and it's a WHINE, even if we were WINE, and you gave it your best shot. All the ick, all the awful, oh, poor baby me, oh, terrible, 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 for 10 minutes until the timer went off. And our agreement was once we stopped at that timer, we had to say, I feel better. Thanks for listening. Isn't that
Oh, that's really nice.
it was good practice for talking to men. And then we'd either say, I'm feel better with, let's move on, or I'd really like some opinions from you, some help. Tell me how I could have this not happen again, or how I could get over this feeling because it's not all the way gone. And then we could all be proactive about that. But boy, we needed that 10 minutes to complain. And I find with my male clients, they need to do that too, because
Oh, interesting.
everybody, generally as human beings, we really like feeling heard and understood, which is the explaining part, why that comes up. So when somebody's upset, and then you could say, gosh, I hear you're really upset with me. Tell me all the things that are wrong. And then once women are, and men both can do this, if you let them complain, and then you can say, is that helpful? Did it help that I listened? Uh-huh. Would it be all right if I tell you my side of it, my point of view? Because we're more likely to listen when we've lowered our upsetness, which the complaining helps do.
I
So
see.
then you might get a chance to explain, might not change their mind at all. They still upset. Or they might go, oh, I get that. Like the woman that yelled at me. And I said, why? And she said, well, you were doing this. And I said, actually not, I was doing this. And it was the thing you mentioned to me about doing it as I'm doing this task 2 weeks ago, you said, do it this way. And I've continued to do it. And she went, oh, okay, I'm sorry, but I am really gruff and I am really impatient. So I knew that wasn't going to be the last time. And I decided I couldn't stay there because I don't like getting yelled at. Even with that great explanation, that kind of personalities, that
Yeah,
volatile personality is hard on me personally.
it's
Other
probably
people,
a habit.
and,
I can
and
speak from experience.
the people, yeah, the people that have been there for 10 years, it rolled off their back. It doesn't roll off my back when somebody raises their voice. It's just who I
Right,
am. So I
right,
just say, I can't be in a place where people yell. They
right.
all did it fine. I mean, some people, that's how they get along and it works for them. It just wouldn't work for me.
Right.
So I took personal responsibility. Yep, it's me. It's not her. I mean, this is who she is. But if it bothers me, I need to step away. So figuring out what is the personal part for you and what are you going to do about it? Because there's so little you can do about the other person that you just can't. You can't change them ever. They can change themselves only if they see value to them for doing it. So until they say, yeah, I think that's a problem, which she said, and I'm going to do something about it, which she didn't say, I said, I can't stay around because she's going to keep doing this. And I'd watched her yell at other people and thought it wouldn't happen to me. Isn't that silly? Because if they do
You're
it to other
special.
people and you're in the orbit, why is it not? And I really, it was such a good lesson for me to learn of, oh, I think because I do at this age, I still think if I'm nice enough, they won't do that thing they do to other people. It's happened over and over. I think I finally learned my lesson. I think I'm not going to do it that way again. So taking things personally and not checking it out is very hard on our self-esteem and very hard on our self-confidence because it starts undermining who we really are. So if you admit, I'm a sensitive person, I really am. I know this about me. So when somebody does something that I'm not actually living with, I'm not actually getting paid by them, and it's too hard on me, I need to leave. So it sounds like you've been on the giving end, maybe more than the receiving end, the way you put it.
Sometimes I feel like that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've been on the receiving end too.
Everybody has.
When, yes, when people have taken something personally that wasn't intended to be personal, and there seems to be no way back. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure everybody's been there. I mean, it
Mhm.
works both ways. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think having these little tools, though, about what you can do, or like setting up a group like you did, so that people have a chance to kind of hear how they sound. I think that's useful.
Mhm.
And being able to talk to someone who is really listening to you and then say, well, you know, in truth, I probably do such and such more than I should, and I need to be more cognizant of that. I think that's really useful. And that's why I think these sessions are with you are so great, is that we almost get to hear ourselves. in some of the things that we do. And it doesn't really make us a bad person. But probably not as effective as we could be. And this kind of help is costs nothing and could mean everything.
So that's why people change. The great word effective. If you want to get from A to B and it's not working, you want to have a better relationship with your employees. You want to have a better relationship with your family, your love, your romantic love, and it's not working smoothly, then what part of it is personal? What part of it could you work on? Because I think so often when we take things personally, we think it's negative. And I'm not even saying that it's negative in that instance, except that you're having negative results. It's not that there's something
Right,
wrong with you
exactly.
as a person. And
And
if
some
your
of those are
result,
long lasting.
so if the results are not happening in the way that you'd like, what adjustment could you make? And ask them. So I'm not sure I ever told the story about my mom. That picture over there is my mom and I.
Oh.
She was very abrupt and outspoken. There was not a lot of filter between her head and her mouth. So she would tell the truth very loudly all the time. Yeah. And I am this very diplomatic person being raised by this. And we did a lot of things together before she passed away. We went to a lot of plays and movies and dinners and played games. I mean, we liked each other's company. And her negative loud comments about the people around us so that they would hear and directed to me too just got old. And finally one day in my mom's 70s, I said, Mom, you raised me. You've known me my whole life. I'm really sensitive. We all know the whole family complains about how sensitive Chrissy is. I said, and so I'm going to take responsibility for that. And part of that responsibility is I just can't spend as much time with you. I'm fine seeing you, but just not as much. Because what you keep telling me is how good you feel after we've spent time together, and I feel drained. And so you keep doing you. I'm not telling you to do anything different. I'm just saying I need to limit my time. So it took about a month. And she came back in her 70s and said, what would you like me to do differently? So I said, think before you speak. Think of maybe a softer way to say the same thing. I'm not telling you to say something different. I'm saying say it differently. So she said, well, I think I'll take lessons from you because I do know I have a very diplomatic daughter. And she worked at it. She died when she was 86 and she was so good for all those years. And one of the
Oh.
coolest things that happened is she'd been part of a women's club. And she came to me one day and said, I have lots of friends there and she loved being there. Best 15 years of her life before she died, after she retired. And she said, the women are even being nicer to me. And I said, good for you, Mom. Why do you think that is? She goes, well, I just think it's a better time for us. And I go, that's really great. And I left her have all the credit, but my brother calls and says, my mom told me the story and you get all the credit,
Oh.
which was lovely. So I didn't care about the credit. I cared that I got better treatment and then selfishly, and then how nice she was treating other people just a little, because they liked her outspokenness. It was just so harsh sometimes. Like we'd stand waiting for a hostess to seat us for dinner, my mom and my sister and I, and she'd go, does she not look in the mirror before she leaves home? I'm not sure her mother would like her. And this is a grown, I know, loud. So that everybody within 3 feet, and my sister and I would stand behind her, go, so sorry. It was who she was. It was just who she was. And she was enthusiastic about lots of positive things too. I mean, she would tell you so many loud, positive things, but the harshness was hard. As
Yes.
somebody who would never, ever in her wildest dreams, if I thought it, say it out loud to somebody, or so that they would hear. So she really worked on it. I was so impressed. In her late 70s and through her 80s, she worked at it. So I know if my mom can make this adjustment and see,
You can too.
if you have the impetus, because I knew I had a big stick to hang out there with a carrot on it. And it would have been okay if she said, I can't do, I'm friggin' 70, whatever she was. I'm not going to, okay, fine. My dad gave me that speech about how he couldn't be any different. Okay. And she said, no, I really want to figure this out. And then it had these long range benefits for her. So I like
Mhm.
telling that story because people think, oh, I don't want to change, or why should I change for other people? It wasn't
Where
for
I can't change.
it wasn't for other people. It ended up making an extra layer of loveliness in her personal life because of my request.
That is a great, great story.
Isn't it
Well,
helpful?
it is very, very helpful. And all of your stories and all of your directions seem to be right on course. I am so grateful. Thank you so much. Well, now, is there anything left for us to talk about next time?
Oh my gosh, I have 4 pages of lists. So yes, I would always be happy to chat
Great.
with you about our relationships with each other, our human condition, and how we can feel more heard and seen and listened to and cared about and important, because that is a need for every human being. It's done differently, it's received differently, it's given out differently, but in our core, everybody on some level, in some way, wants all that connection, even if it's just one person, to feel
Yes.
understood, to feel seen, to feel cared about. So that's what all these talks are about, is how to achieve that, have your best life, right?
Amen. Amen. And to eliminate the things that really separate us from other people, keep us separate and apart and not happy, when we could, as you suggest, enjoy other people's company and the best of them and the best of us.
And sort out the ones that you don't want to keep company with, because I think
Sometimes,
people,
yeah, people are not willing to change. They're not willing to. They don't. Maybe they don't even know, and maybe we're not able to tell them. So I guess you have to draw the line somewhere.
in my 20s, I still worked very hard at trying to make people I didn't like me. I retired from that in my
I
30s.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's kind of hard being a stubborn redheaded person as I am, and then also wanting to be liked, you know. So I think I got a double dose of wanting to learn.
It's quite a conundrum. And you're being such a willing student.
Well, thank you, Christine. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
You're welcome very much.
Well, we are going to look forward to the next time we're together again. I really appreciate your taking time and sharing a lot of the work that you do with other people and giving us the advantage of all that you're doing and learning. Thank you so much.
You're always very so much welcome, Pat. I'll see you again next week.
Indeed. Thank you.